Let's get started, everyone. Thank you for joining another App Engine Academy. As always, definitely thank you and appreciate you being here. Also, really enjoyed getting to meet some of you at Knowledge. So thank you for connecting there. And I heard there might have been a little bit of confusion for the May scheduling. We don't run any of the academies or the office hours that first couple weeks in May, and so I heard there might have been some confusion about that. So apologize if the scheduling wasn't right there. So let's get started. All right, as always, what we're going to talk about today are build topics that we can do right now. So we're not expecting any forward-looking statements, but if they do come up, they'll be identified, and please don't make any buying decisions based on those statements. We're thrilled that to see you on the academies, the App Engine Academy. There's a lot of other content on live at ServiceNow, and so definitely take a moment to check that out. There's some really good content available on live at ServiceNow. So encourage you to capture this link and check it out. And as a final housekeeping, please, as we go, submit questions in the Q&A. I will do my best to find those, and if they're sort of time relevant to exactly what we're talking about, then we'll try and address those then. But otherwise, talk about that at the end. And also, please take a few minutes at the end to submit a survey. We definitely look at those and use those to try and make this content as useful as possible. So appreciate taking the time out of your busy day to provide some feedback. And then finally, before we get started, the App Engine Academy is the first Wednesday of the month. Our office hours are the second Wednesday of the month. We do talk about all topics, but really what we are trying to do is capture use cases and new app ideas. There's been a lot of good conversation between attendees as well as the outbound product managers for App Engine around those. And I think that there's been a lot of good mind share around that. So if you have time, and in particular, if you would like to discuss an idea for new application, the use case, the applicability of building a new app versus utilizing a product workflow, would love to see you there same time next Wednesday. All right, so we've been going through sort of this series that we've been calling our App Engine Getting Started Guide. And so, what we had started was, really the nuts and bolts of how to think about custom applications, how to really be a good citizen on the platform, utilize out-of-the-box workflows, and then when to think about custom applications. And so, we've gone through this journey and built a number of different or built a workflow and added some additional capabilities to it. And today we're going to really sort of put a bow on that phase. And so what we're going to do is look at how we can utilize playbooks to, really introduce more of a guided experience for fulfillers. We created a very simple flow in the beginning to connect the request to work that needs to be accomplished on the platform. We automated some of the decision making, where the marketing manager would assign the design request to a graphic designer with Decision Builder. But really what we want to add is a little bit more for a prescriptive experience, so people can understand what needs to happen next, but then also a nice sort of journey map where we can see what's been accomplished previous to the steps that need to occur now, as well as what might need to be done in the future. And then so another kind of important consideration is when we think about creating this initial workflow, right, for this marketing design request for this group. a lot of times, what we want to do, or what there's an opportunity to add additional processes, where the end users that might be making these design requests might have questions or experience issues. And so we'll talk about how we can augment this initial service delivery request with the ability for requesters to either ask questions or report issues to the marketing department. And so an important part of that is, how can we group all of that? And so, we want to do that in two ways. One, for the requester, now we're starting to think about what we call like a departmental application, right? Where, we're really instrumenting a lot of the things that the department does. And so we want to be able to logically group that into hierarchy for the requesters to make that easy to find. And, perfect way to do that on the service portal is with a taxonomy and, utilizing ESC or EC Pro to surface that to the end user. So we'll look at how to do that. And then, on the other side of that, what we also want to do is create kind of this single pane of glass experience for the fulfillers. And so we'll look at how we can enhance the workspace where they can, kind of see exactly the variety of the different requests, who might be working on those requests, and and what status they're all in. And so that's what we'll look at. And so, for next steps, what we really kind of want to transition to, there's a couple of different things when we're looking at increase the value. And so this is where I didn't have time to set up a poll, but I'd love to just, if you wouldn't mind putting into the chat, we really are at a crossroads, and we sort of want to do two things here. And so one is, this getting started guide is a high level kind of topical view of how we would encourage you to think about the workflows and how you might enhance them. But what we really want to get into is sort of some of the more advanced topics, how to think about leveraging patterns you're seeing both in the delivery and implementation of these applications, but then also the usage patterns, right? When you build this, we built this application for this marketing department, but we might see similar types of needs from other departments, right? And so that is a good opportunity to leverage patterns there. One of the things that's come up is there's been a number of questions around, in particular, this task table. There's like some legacy filter conditions, right? That can make it so you can only choose requesters that have an ITIL license, or maybe groups that have been identified as an ITIL group by default. And so there's a number of things that we'd like to cover there. But what we also want to start really talking about is where does AI now fit into this bigger picture? And how can we look at this spectrum of um, adding AI to apps, right? So how can we take an existing business process, an existing workflow, add more coarse-grained skills, AI skills to them? How then can we look at taking a similar type of workflow and adding AI agent capabilities? And then how can we think about identifying work that sometimes isn't well structured, but is still fairly repeatable, and that's a good opportunity for an AI native agentic app. And so what we're trying to do is think about how we might cover both of those. Like I said, if you have any thoughts, love to hear about that in the chat. But we're considering maybe adding another academy that this one will continue on the build topics and sort of cover the blocking and tackling that can trip people up a lot of times when building their first applications, but then also how to do it using engineering concepts in an advanced manner. But then also we want to start expanding into the AI topics. So before we do that, though, I just wanted to mention, most of what we're covering here is available on the community site. And so here we have a shortened link if you want to check this out, but I just wanted to make sure that everyone is aware that as we start transitioning from this specific content, what we want to also make it do, or we also want to make it available on the community site. And so that is available here on this app dev get started product hub. So if you go to product hub and then to app development and then getting started with application development, we have quite a bit of the same concepts that that we have been talking about in this session. And also, what we also have is basically a step-by-step guide that walks you through essentially all of the different things that we've been building and discussing in the last few academies. And so, so what we're going to do today is basically hop to first start where we finished the last time, where we had just built the decision table, and add a playbook, and we'll talk about how easy that is to do. And then what we're also going to do then is, or actually, we're going to skip this step. And so, I'd mentioned a lot of times what we see is that, when a group or department in your enterprise or organization starts utilizing, these workflows, there's these additional supporting workflows that can really make a lot of sense and add value to the initial service delivery. And so I already created these. This is basically these tables and record producers are essentially a repeat of what we did before. But what we're going to do is we're going to utilize those later in creating a taxonomy and grouping all of these different services for our requesters. But then also how we're going to use those at the end is customizing the workspace, right? Because where we left it last time, the marketing services workspace was pretty basic. And so so what we want to do is really kind of tailor this and make it more useful. So just to recap though, where we had stopped is we had created this we created the data model, right? We created the table, we created the record producer and the workspace. And then what we did is we had started utilizing Flow Designer to develop the business process. And so let's just recap what the process is, because it's been a while, and then we'll actually submit a record and see what that looks like, and then we'll add the workspace and see kind of the difference in how structured the fulfillment experience can be. Okay, so here where this workflow is getting triggered when a new marketing design request is getting created. If you remember, this decision table determines, it looks at whether the request was going to be customer facing, whether it's external or internal or not. And then based on that, it was going to assign a specific graphic designer. And here's where, this is structured, and this business process makes sense. But here's where, we're starting to rely on the fulfillers, our end users that are participating in service delivery to, update the record correctly so we can execute the next steps of the business process. And while that's good, there's training involved with that, and there's some ambiguity there. And so this is what we're going to try and replace with a playbook where we can more explicitly guide the user to essentially, once the design is complete, they're marking the state is design complete. And so just as we follow these next few steps, right, we're determining if this is external. If the request is external, then what we're going to do is we are going to ask for approval from the branding department, right? And so relatively simple. But so if we go into let's just go into the service portal and find the marketing design request. And so what I'm going to do is just submit it. So let's just say Academy t-shirt design. Academy, and then I'm just going to make this digital. So if we submit this, okay, let's go back to this. Oh, did you see initially how it was 2 and then 1? So that's what we want, because if you recall, we're using a decision table to assign this. So it no longer fits the criteria that this is an unassigned task. But you'll see here, let's give this a second. And I preloaded the other tables. We'll talk about how we do that later. But if you see here, this is what we'd expect, where we have all of this information, but what we're relying on is we're relying on Bud Richmond, the designer, the graphic designer that we assigned this request to mark this as design complete and upload, because that will essentially trigger the next step in the process. And so that's a good opportunity to utilize a playbook. So let's start creating a new playbook that's going to be specific to this process, and we can provide a little more guidance to Bud Richmond. So I'm just going to go in here and create a new playbook. This instance has been a little slow today, but we will get there eventually. Okay, so here we have a playbook, and so I'm going to have a ton of Zoom windows open. I'm just going to clear them out a little bit. Okay, so now I'm going to create the playbook. Okay, so good question. So Jay Betancourt asked, at what point of creating a new process does it make sense to start thinking about a playbook? And so you really need to understand your process fairly well. So if you are essentially, backing into the workflow where you need to see the workflow executed and start identifying all of the different steps, then that wouldn't be a good time to start with the playbook. Starting with the simple workflow that we built in Flow Designer, looking at the manual steps that people needed to perform, and then adding additional things like decision tables and additional logic. And once you start getting a better idea of the steps and maybe the variety of different paths that workflow could take. But then also what's really important is the different data elements that you want each of the end users each of your fulfillers to interact with at each step in the playbook. That's really where you want to start introducing it. You can really make lower adoption essentially with playbooks if it's presenting the wrong information at the wrong time. So definitely a good idea to develop a better understanding of your process before you implement the playbook. Okay, so I'm going to name this marketing design request. Oh, and so you'll see here, in this instance, I have now assist turned on, where we can actually submit a hand-drawn diagram or a diagram, and it will use generative AI to build the skeleton of a playbook, or you can describe what you're looking to accomplish. That is something that on that AI track that we will start talking about. But here, what we want to do is actually discuss how you might build it yourself. So we aren't going to use Now Assist in this circumstance. So the playbook essentially has these different sort of swim lanes or stages, and then the different activities that need to occur for to complete the process. And so the first thing we want to do, though, is let's just configure this to run when the trigger is going to be when the record is created. And the table is going to be marketing design request, right? And we don't need to further qualify the conditions for when it runs. We just want it to run when it is this record is submitted. And so now we know when it's going to run. And so what we can do now is start creating our different stages. And so for this first one here, I'm going to mark this stage as create design. Right, and then I'm going to create another stage, and that's going to be review the design, right? Because if you recall, if it's external, we want the branding department to review the design. And so, this is just, we're just essentially building out these different steps, but you can see that we're already providing a lot more context into the different things that need to occur to service this process. So the first thing we want to do here is create an activity. And so, the workflow, one important thing to note is the workflow is going to run as well. And so just because you have a playbook does not mean that workflows associated with record creation or record updates won't also run. And so what we're doing here is we're taking advantage of the fact that we already know that this is going to get assigned. But what we want to do now is just provide a little more guidance to the end user. If you recall Bud Richmond, the graphic designer, what we really want him to accomplish. And so what I'm going to do here is create or add an auto-completing user form. And so what an auto-completing user form allows us to do is show certain attributes of the request as read-only, show certain elements of the form, and then when the user accomplishes or enters specific data that meets the criteria, then this activity will autocomplete and it will transition to the next activity. So we're going to use that to further guide our designer to complete this form. Okay, so let's go in now, and you'll see there's a variety of options controlling, when these run, the different delays. And so this again ties back to, what you really want is to understand the different stages in your business process before you don't really want to hop straight to playbook unless you already have a good understanding of the workflow. So what we can do, though, is identify, the record associated with this activity is going to be the initial request. And I noticed there's a bug in this instance. See here, it wants us to enter some missing required fields, but we don't have an option there. So I'm just going to save it and then go back here. And so this is what we want now, is where, the completion condition is, we're applying some criteria where, once the user has entered the data that meets the criteria for the completion condition, then this activity will automatically close. And so what we're going to do here is make this really simple for Bud. And we are going to just do the completion condition on the state. Right, and if the state is design complete. And so this matches our the conditions that we had, the wait for condition in the flow, but now we're just providing, we're essentially providing more guidance for Bud. So so that's the automation. And so now let's switch to the layout though, because we can control how what the experience for Bud Richmond looks like. So the first thing we can do is, rather than having the title of this auto-completing user form, that isn't really what we want. Let's just remove that. And what we can do is take a dynamic attribute here, and we're just going to take the project name. Right. And I'm not going to configure all of this, but what we are going to do is configure a couple different things where, and I'm going to copy and paste. I'm going to cheat here. where these record fields are the different fields of the record that we're going to display as read-only in this activity card. And so what Bud is going to do, he's going to, when he looks at this playbook, when this activity is active, he'll see these different record fields for context. But what we really want to do is have him only modify a couple things. Maybe he might need to reassign this. And then also importantly is that, we want him to update the state, because that's really what we're looking to accomplish, is once he updates the state to design complete, then this task will complete here. And so certainly we want him to be able to attach his work product, right? So when the design is complete, he can attach it to this record and change the state to design complete. And so we have basically the simplified process that's showing Bud the information, kind of the right information in context, and then also, just the limited options that we want him to perform, upload his design, and then mark the state, and then that will transition it to the next step in the workflow. And so what we can also do, though, is we can provide some additional information as to, the approval, right? The design review that may need to occur. And so here, what we need some logic, right? Because the approval isn't always going to happen, right? The approval is only going to happen if the request is external. So let's just add some logic here, where we can take the record that triggers this and then add external. And then we're just going to add this to true, because we really only want these certain activities to occur where when it's external. And I probably, this is a little bit sloppy. I should probably name this to external here, but for maintainability. But we are just going to go in now and add another activity here to this branch. And it can, let's see, what we want here is to just be able to see all of the different approval requests. And so now we're starting to have these clean activities that are divided by these different stages, where we have this first stage where the design is created, and then the second stage where we are optionally going to add this activity where we can view the approval request. And this is just a simple example. Frequently, what you would have if you were truly building out your process is certainly multiple different activities that might happen in sequential or parallel in each of these stages. So this is, I definitely don't want you to think that there's one activity per stage. This is just a simple example here. Okay, so let's go to the automation. And what we can do here is, we need to qualify the approval request, because we only want to show a certain number, or, we only want to show the approval request for this record. And so what I'm going to do is just go in here to add condition. And the approval for, right, is going to be for the record that is triggering this request. And so that will automatically set it up so only the approval requests now are going to be displayed there. So that is, again, a very simple playbook, but I think you can see it's going to add quite a bit of guidance and sort of a much more tailored experience for our marketing department fulfillers. And in particular, when you're building custom applications for users that aren't in the platform every day, that's really how you can drive adoption and user satisfaction, is make this, as clear and as understandable as possible for the different fulfillers. Let's see. So there's a question about, will we be sent a link to the recording? It will be, I believe you get sent a link, but it will also definitely be in YouTube, and it's also available on the community site as well. So you'll definitely be able to get to those. Okay, so now that is the playbook. And so now what we're going to do, we're going to hop in back into ServiceNow Studio, if I can find it. And what we want to do is we want to go to our workspace, right? Because we've added the playbook. And so now what we're going to do is actually associate the playbook with the workspace. That's the next step. And so this is what we're looking at here. Workspace Builder is an entitlement that's added to ServiceNow Studio if you have an App Engine entitlement. And it basically just provides a much simpler way to do common tasks like adding a playbook to a record. So this does require an App Engine entitlement. You can also do it in UI Builder. It's relatively easy, but it isn't quite this straightforward. So just wanted to make sure everyone's aware that this is specific to App Engine here, Workspace Builder. But so that being said, what I'm going to do here is just go to the marketing design request. And then you'll see there's a variety of different sort of simplified ways to tailor the workspace to this user audience and this record specifically. But you know, what we see here is that this option here is we can add the playbook. And so I'm just going to name this tab playbook. And you know, I don't really there's a variety of different what we call playbook experiences. In general, if you want the typical playbook experience, it's going to be this global playbook experience. And so maybe down the road we'll get into specifics about that. But you know, the important point is to kind of demonstrate how easy it is to think about adding a playbook to tailor the experience more, and then associate it with the request itself. All right, so let's go back in. Let's actually just go ahead and submit a request. So I'm going to go home here, and we'll see what the experience looks like. And you know, I shouldn't have to refresh this, but I'm going to just in case, just to make sure we pick up the playbook. So let's go to marketing design request. Right, and say new playbook. And I do want that to be external. I'm going to make this digital, and I'm just going to put in. Right. So I'm going to submit this. All right, so let's refresh this here. Okay, let's go here. Or just take a second. And you'll see here now that we have this playbook tab. And so so this is much simpler, right? So it's much clearer that I didn't actually rename this title here. That would have been better. But you know, so we could have a dynamic title here, but we can see that there's a limited number of things that that Bud can do here. And really what we want to do is make this as simple as possible. And so if we go here to design complete and update this, remember that's the criteria for the auto completing condition. Then we now are going to this the next stage, right? And so it's going to take a second for the approvals to get lined up here. So so we won't wait for that. But you see here how much more information is getting displayed here to Bud. All right, so let's we'll go back to the approvals maybe later, but now let's talk about the different taxonomies, right? Because what we really want is, if we did that, or I'm sorry, so I already did this part, right? So you know, we've already been through the process of creating a table, extending task, you know, why we might want to do that, and creating the record producers. But now what we really want to do is to be able to create a taxonomy and show that to display that to our users. And so, you know, so if we go now, if we transition to Easy Pro, EC Pro will use the taxonomies. And, taxonomy, really all it is a hierarchy of data that enables us to, kind of group, in this case, the menuing and how all of these different catalog items and record producers are organized for our end users. And so there's a little bit of a trick here when we're using taxonomies. There's a record called an advanced portal navigation, and I'm not even going to switch to the right scope here, but and it's really kind of awkward because it basically associates this portal with whether we're going to apply this advanced portal navigation. But what we want to make sure is if that there's an advanced portal navigation record that is associated with the Employee Center, that it's not active, because essentially this setting allows us to override taxonomies and utilize them or basically use the more traditional menuing structure. So just definitely be aware of that setting. But what we're going to do is set up the taxonomy for this marketing department. So first, though, we need to change the scope. And so the scope is going to be the employee experience taxonomy. And then let's go to taxonomies. All right, and we can see this is an active taxonomy, and we can see that this is set up. And what we're seeing here is these different child topics. If we go back to the Employee Center, that's what we're seeing here. And so that's what we want to do, is basically create this taxonomy to group the different marketing requests now. So let's just go into the taxonomy. And what we need to do is create a new child topic. So I'm just going to name this marketing. And I'm going to do a save because I want to stay here. And so what we can do is just create this connected content, right? So here I'm going to go in and associate the catalog items with that child content item. So we want the marketing design request. And then those the inquiries and issues that I already created. Okay. And then let's get to the issue. Issue. All right. And so what this does is this makes it very easy when we go into, let's just refresh the Employee Center. Oop. Let's see. It is not added here. So let's go back and see what's happening. Marketing. All right, let's try that. Okay, let's try. Okay, let's see what's happening here. Let's marketing. It's active. Huh. Okay, I'm going to disable this. So maybe it's just because of my low res screen here. Okay, hold on. See, so this is active. global. Okay, well, actually, all right, in the interest of time, rather than troubleshooting this, what I'm going to do is just add this to the department. So let's just add the catalog item, marketing design request. Is the thing that I really want to get to is the workspaces. So let's just make sure that this is working. Okay, they are there. I want to cover the workspace thing, and then if we have time, we'll hop back to troubleshooting this. But I think the important thing here is that essentially using the taxonomies allows it to group the different requests on the EC Pro side. So let's switch to the workspace, because this is I definitely want to make sure to cover this, and we have 12 minutes left. So let's do this, and then we will either take a look at the next session or if we have a few minutes at the end of this. So when we built this initially, this was essentially just tied to the marketing design request. And so what I did is, remember, I had added those other tables. And then when I added those tables, the marketing issue and the marketing inquiry, what I also did then is use Workspace Builder to very easily add these different categories and these different filters for all of those different records. And so that's good, right? So what we have now is the ability to see all of the different options here. But this workspace is not really what we want, because it's only displaying, essentially very limited information around one table. And so what I really wanted to talk about for this part is utilizing table inheritance and the different fields and attributes that are available on the task table to report across all of these different workflows. So let's look and see exactly how we might do that. So this is, so I'm just going to go in here and edit. Actually, I'm just going to create let me switch the scope here. Services. Okay, so now let's edit this. And what I'm going to do, I'll just add an element at the bottom of data visualization. And, what we're going to do is we're going to, utilize the fact that all of these different tables are extend from the task table. And so what I'm going to do is I'm going to switch this to a horizontal bar. And then we need to set the data source. And so what I'm going to do here is I'm just going to utilize the task table. But we don't want, all of the different items. So let's just so what we can utilize is the task type field is marketing design. So we want to capture, our different I had another one there because I was testing this out. So hopefully I get the right one. Let's see. Or task type is marketing issue. Okay, so let's add this. And so now what we can do is we can do some very interesting things with this visualization. So one of the things we could do is we could say, let's look and see how long this is open by, or how long this is open, right? Because all of these different requests, since this the open field is part of the task table, we can utilize that across the different request types. And now what we can do is we can, do further grouping, where we can look at, like the state, right? So what state is this in? Right, or what we can do is we can group it by assigned to. Like who's this been assigned to? Oop. There we go. So we can see here what requests have been assigned to Bud Richmond, and then which are unassigned. And so this can be a lot more useful now. Let's get rid of this one. So you can see kind of how quickly we can start making this much more useful to the different users in our department. So we can go in here and say task aging or request age I assigned to. Right, and I'm just going to do one other one. Just going to delete this one. Let's just add another element. And so let's just add a simple one here where we'll go to hi. And so now what we can do is we can configure the distribution of the different task types. So let's do that again. We do have to filter this. And if you recall, in one of the earlier data modeling sessions, we did use multiple table inheritance where we had an intermediate table. And so if you were to utilize that, that type of data design, then you wouldn't have to go through this exercise of identifying these different task types every time. So just another kind of way where we can use platform capability that's what I wanted, to make our life easier. So this is an issue. Okay, so we can say request types. So let's just save this. I'm not going to worry about layout too much. Exit editing mode. And so this is a little bit messy here, but you can see that it's much more useful. Oh, I am going to edit this because I did not change this to task type. So let's just change that. And then I'll go back and re-add the title here. So, just very quickly, right, this is a much more useful already because we can see the different request types. We can see, the different age of these requests, who they're assigned to. And by default, all of these are going to be hot, right? So if we drill through this here, we can see, all of the different requests assigned to Bud, just like what we'd expect. And so I think I'll go back and troubleshoot the taxonomy, why that didn't work offline, and maybe we can the next time we'll just look and see specifically why that didn't work. But the important thing that we wanted to sort of talk about in the tail end of this getting started guide is, one, how can we take all of the different things that we built and then utilizing a playbook to very quickly and easily enhance the process and make it very specific to the goals that we're looking to for the end user for the fulfillers to accomplish. What we did also is, I created those additional tables offline, but what we then wanted to do is just add additional workflows for this marketing service department. And so now that we can see, not only can they receive requests related to design, they can also receive additional requests related to, questions or any issues that might occur during this process. And importantly, what we wanted to do is make it easy for our requesters to find, even though there was a configuration problem. But I think you can see how you set up the taxonomy for the service portal. And then, almost most importantly, how can we create this, the workspace to be, a useful work surface that is showing the right information in context to this population of graphic designers, because they're not really going to be in the ServiceNow platform all day, every day. And so this concept of a workspace and associating an experience specific to what their work, rather than having them wade through the filter navigator. Certainly, it could have been customized to include the different tables here, but that's when we start hearing, I can't find anything, or this is confusing, or everything looks the same. It's because what we're not doing is considering, this population of users that is not, doesn't really understand sort of the flexibility and power of, modifying list views and, tailoring columns and things like that, and grouping the different data elements in list views. That isn't just, the way they're going to interact with the platform. So, I think we'll call it there. Thank you all for attending. Hopefully, it's useful. Like I said earlier, what we are trying to do is really figure out how we can continue these types of conversations around app dev, but then also start adding more AI to the workflows as well, and how to do that. Okay, and so we have a question from Nancy. Thank you, Nancy. Let's just take a look. Can SN Studio use the App Engine Studio deployment pipeline to propose an app through dev, test, staging, prod, or updates managed via update sets? So, to use like the deployment pipelines, you do have to have a scoped app. And so, Dev Studio can certainly interact with it in that way. The direct UI integration with version control and publishing it to App Engine Management Center, that isn't directly built into the UI, but it certainly is possible, because under the covers, it just relies on the work being in a scoped app. Okay, so Steve, let's see if I can find Steve, either hand raise. Okay, Steve, you can come off mute, or if you wanted to, you could type your question into the chat. Okay, well, Steve, I can't hear you, so let's give you another second to see if you want to come off mute. But otherwise, thanks everyone. I think, like I said, we are transitioning now. I think next session we're going to look at the task table, sort of the engine behind it. Like how the active flag works. The auto close rules, and all of those different. Setting up the filter conditions, right, for assigned to, and the assignment group, and sort of all of the things that we want to do to really prepare the task table to be used in these custom applications. So thanks everyone, and appreciate you joining today.